Jesus still can use you in some way, and he wants to. And there is really nothing more powerful than a life that is absolutely and totally transformed by Jesus for his glory. Peter, the comeback kid. Welcome to Bible Study Hub. I'm Ann Wiggins. Welcome back to the Gospel of John. We're in the last chapter, chapter 21. We'll be doing 18 to 19 today, but before we dig in, and I'll be reading from the Legacy Standard Bible as always, but before we dig in, I just want to do a little bit of a recap of where we are in this passage to make sure we're all on the same page. So we'll talk about it first, then we'll read, and then we'll talk about it again. So the passage that we're about to read is one of Jesus restoring Peter, and it's so important to this story. If you recall, Peter had failed so miserably. He had denied his Lord not once, not twice, but 3 times, and all during a time when Jesus needed him the most. He had then doubted the resurrection and had to see it for himself. And then on top of that, he had been disobedient to stay in the city where Jesus told them to stay, and instead went 111 miles away. And then to make matters worse, he led some of the other disciples to make the same disobedient decision to leave ministry and go back to fishing. If there is a picture of a broken man who feels like he's washed up and unfit to serve Jesus, Peter is that man. But Jesus comes to these men, fills their empty nets with fish, and feeds them breakfast. Yesterday, we read and talked about the exchange between Peter and Jesus, where Jesus asked Peter 3 times if he loved him. We talked about that yesterday. So today's passage comes on the heels of that passage, and that is very important to know. So join me in John chapter 21. We're doing verses 18 to 19. Here's what it says. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were younger, you used to gird yourself and walk wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will gird you and bring you to where you do not wish to go. Now he said this, signifying by what kind of death he would glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he said to him, follow me. Peter thought it was done. It was over. He was washed up. He was not worthy. But Jesus says, not so fast. In these verses, Jesus actually assures Peter that he will be a martyr for him. I don't think these verses have ever been as poignant to me as they are right now. I have never had such a personal connection with somebody brutally martyred for their faith, not until September 10th, 2025. There is something both gut-wrenching and simultaneously almost supernatural about giving your life for Jesus. It's almost like there's this otherworldly aura that comes with martyrdom. I don't think Jesus was saying this to scare Peter. I don't think he was saying it to threaten him either. In some supernatural, otherworldly way, I think this was actually a commendation and an assurance to Peter that he was back. You don't willingly die for a cause or a person that you don't believe in. Jesus was telling Peter, you'll be restored, and not just restored, but to the point that you will actually give your life for me. I imagine that after betraying Jesus, or denying him, I should say, feeling like you would never be able to face him or minister for him again. This was probably in some ways a little comforting to hear. And then Jesus caps that off with the words, follow me. I want you to notice something. Jesus doesn't ask him. He commands him. And Jesus doesn't ask us to follow him. He commands it. It's not a soft request. This is orders. So, did it happen? Did what Jesus predicted come true? Well, the Bible doesn't record Peter's death, but in the providence of God, Church history does, and it tells us that Peter was crucified for his faith. The arms outstretched, that's what that was talking about. But here's the kicker. Ancient accounts tell us that when it was time for Peter to be martyred, crucified for his faith, he made a very odd request. Have you heard this? He requested that they crucify him flipped upside down. The reason he said that was because he said, I'm not worthy to die in the same manner as my Lord. And so they crucified him upside down. That kind of comeback is unbelievable. If Peter can come back from his massive failures, then you and I, we can come back from ours. Maybe you let your guard down at some point and you got lazy and you just stopped being committed to Christ and you kind of stopped serving him. Maybe you watched the horrific events of September 10th and you felt convicted and a renewed sense of, I need to get myself in line here. I need to get back to my commitment to Christ. Let's all be in 100% for Jesus. If Peter can come back from what he did, you can come back from anything you've done too. It doesn't necessarily mean that you'll come back to the same position that you were before. But one thing I do know, Jesus still can use you in some way, and he wants to. And there is really nothing more powerful than a life that is absolutely and totally transformed by Jesus for his glory. So can we be resolute? Can we, regardless of where we are on our spiritual journey through this life, because we're all at a different spot, say, I'm not going to let up. I'm not going to let the past dictate my future. I'm not going to look backwards. I'm going to look forward. And I believe that if Jesus can pull Peter out of the mess that he had created for himself and use him, and that Peter would actually go on to be one of the greatest apostles of all time and will die crucified upside down for his Lord. If God can do that with Peter, he can do something with me too. Well, I hope that encourages you today. That'll wrap it up for today's Bible Study Hub. I want you to know we will be live tomorrow with our video at 6 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube as usual, Eastern Time. However, following tomorrow's, I will be taking off a little extended time just to rest, focus on the Lord, spend more time in prayer without the coming at me like a freight train, the deadlines that are self-imposed. Obviously, I set them up for myself, but I've been teaching Bible study for about 9 years straight with just a few breaks here and there, and I feel just mentally drained and emotionally drained. I just need some time to kind of recoup and just spend some daddy-daughter time with Jesus. That's what I want to do. So I will be back eventually, but if you don't see me for a while, everything's fine. Just taking a little break to spend some intimate time with the Lord. All right, that'll wrap it up for today. Have a good rest of your day, and Lord willing, I'll see you back here tomorrow as we wrap up the Gospel of John together. See you then.